Hi, I'm Astrid, a professional web designer, and I'm here to teach you the basics of web design layouts. Being able to make any design layout is undoubtedly one of the most important skills that any front-end developer or web designer should have, but it's also one of the most overlooked. So, pay attention. Before we start, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Today I'm going to use my favorite combination of WordPress and Oxygen Builder, but feel free to use any builder that you like or any other platform. You should be able to apply this same knowledge to any project, no matter what platform or builder you're using. It's just that it's probably gonna look a little different, but it's all the same principles. Before we jump into WordPress, I want to show you the one thing that you need to consider even before starting the design of your website. The last thing you want is for your website to look super amazing on Figma or XD, but then when it comes to time to put that into WordPress, you're just not capable of doing it, especially after you already showed it to a client and you already promised something and then turns out you can't deliver. So let me show you this one thing that you really need to keep in mind. And what is this very important thing I'm talking about? Grids. All right, so I have this Figma file here and I have three sizes. So I have my desktop, I have my tablet size, and I have my mobile size here on the right. So let's start with this. I personally use the 12 grid system, or I guess it's a combination of that and percentages. So if you go here and you turn on the grids, you're gonna get this red columns, the red columns here. So you can do this, and then if you click here, you can actually use any amount of columns that you want. So you can do 6 columns, or you can do 5 columns. There's all kinds of different column systems, but I like 12 and percentages, which is I'm gonna explain to you in a minute. And then I have some margin here because I want my 12 columns to start here and not go all the way to the edges of the page. All of these different rectangles represent one element on the page. So this could be text, it could be, this could be a subtitle, and this could be a button. Each one is placed on its own column or container. So we could say that this is a container and it's 12 columns wide, and inside that container I have 8 column wide element. So this could be a big title or something like that. And then the same thing here, but instead of 8 I have 4, and then for the button I only have 2. Now if we continue going down here, it's gonna be more of the same. So this side I have my container here and it's 12 columns wide, and then inside of that I have 2 columns. I have my 5 column element and I have my 7 column element here. And then this one is the one that I'm going to use for this example to kind of explain how to turn this into a tablet size and then a mobile size. So you may be wondering, why is this even important? Why can't I just, put elements there and it's probably gonna look fine, right? So let me explain why using grids is important for your web design layouts and to keep your sanity. Everything about a website layout is actually made of rectangles. So everything on a website, every element on a website is going to be inside a container, and these containers are going to be, you can control the size, you can control the margin, padding, you can control all that stuff, but at the end of the day it's just going to be a bunch of rectangles, and then inside of those rectangles that we call containers, or we call div, or we call sections, inside of them we're going to have the different elements. And when I say elements, I mean any text, any heading, any image, anything and everything is going to be inside of these containers. So it's very important to really understand how this works. And this is actually something that's very logical and kind of mathematical, but don't worry, you don't have to be good at math because I'm not. Okay, so let's go here to this third section that I have, and let me turn my grid off for a second so we can see a little bit better. And you can see that my div here, represented by this lighter blue rectangle, that is the size of my container. So we could say this is the div inside the section, which is represented here by this gray background. If this is my container and it's a 12 column container, I have 2 columns inside of it. So the ones on the left, that's gonna be 50%, but it could be anything. It could be 30%, 20%. It really doesn't matter as long as in the end it adds to 100 or 12 columns. And then this side, of course, is 50%. And then I have my second section here, which is 33% each. Why 33%? Because this is actually going to be inside of this other column. So we could say that here, there's another column inside the column that is called nesting. So you have nested columns. And then we could say this is another column inside of this column. So this would be a 100% column inside a 50% column. So that is what we call a nested column. And this is, it's a very simple concept. So if this is 100% and I wanted to divide that by 3, then each one of these is going to be 33.33334 or something like that. You can make any combination, really. It could be 25 and 25 and 50, anything that adds up to 100 or to 12 columns. With Oxygen, you don't have to use a 12 column grid. You can literally use anything you like, but just make sure that you're using some kind of grid system. You're also going to be able to lay the elements out in a way that makes more sense and is more organized. Now, this doesn't mean that it has to be boring, that all of your designs are going to be inside a rectangle and everything's gonna look like a grid. You can do anything inside of these containers, and it could be any kind of shape, and you can have fun with this, and it doesn't really have to be perfect and rectangular. You can put anything inside of this, and then once you're more advanced, you're probably going to go a little beyond that and kind of break the rules a little bit, but this is just a good basic start. All right, now let's move on to our tablet size here. So the difference here is that instead of having the 12 columns, we're going to have 6 columns. But if you're using percentages, this is still going to be 100%. So it's pretty much the same. And then this is going to be the same as we see here, but it's just everything is going to be on a smaller scale, which is exactly what you want to do when you go from desktop to tablet and then to mobile. So this first section here is still going to be 100% wide, and then we're just going to scale everything down proportionally so it looks good on a tablet. And then I'm just going to skip this section here because there's really nothing different about it. This is just the same, even though this should be more like this, but it stays proportionally the same. And the way you decide if that's what you want, it's just a matter of how it looks on the specific size that you're working with. And then you have control over what you want to do. So in the case that you wanted to have this section be 100% and then this other section be 100%, you can just go ahead and stack them on top of each other, just like that. And then you have the same section. Instead of 2 columns, you just have 2 columns of 100%. But that's not what we want, because I feel like there's enough space here for our 2 columns to live peacefully together. So let's move on to the third column here, and this is the example that I'm using. This is the same section. So if you see here, I have 1, 2, and 3. That means this is section 1 within our section, but this is like part 1, part 2, and part 3. And then once it goes to tablet side, it's gonna stack in the same order. So I'm gonna have my part 1 here, which is going to turn into a 100% width section, and then my 3 columns here are going to turn, they're gonna stay as a 3 column section, but they're gonna expand to the full width of the container. And then part 3 is going to be stacked right under, and it's also going to be 100% wide. And that is just one option that we have. but it doesn't have to be like that. Like I said, you have total control over what you want to do there. So it could be like this. You could keep these two sections and in this layout that I have here. So if I wanted to turn that into, like, turn this into this, I could just have my 50% section on the left and then have 16.66 section for each of my 3 columns here on the right. So we have 2 options here, and there's other options. So everything's gonna depend on the type of elements that you have here. And now, last but not least, we have our iPhone size, which is, the first column is going to be the same, but like I said, everything's gonna proportionally shrink. So it looks good on an iPhone screen. That's where you have to go test it on your actual phone, or doesn't matter if it's not an iPhone, as long as you have a similar size. And then my second section is going to become stacked. So they're just gonna be 100%. Now, this is a personal preference of mine, but I usually will use only 1 column on iPhone. This is just the way I like doing it, because I feel like when you use more columns, things start to get a little bit too small, but it will depend on what you're doing. Maybe for some things it works if you want to use 2 columns, but just be careful and just make sure that things are not super small and that they're easy to read and the text is not shrinking too much. So I'm gonna go here to my 3rd section. This is the way I would do it for a section like this. I would just make everything go 1 column, and if these 3 things were icons, I would just have an icon on top, like 3 icons on top of each other, and maybe there's like an icon and text or something like that, maybe like a list of services or something. And then I will have my first part here, and then the other one 100% as well. As you can see, this is not very complicated. This is just the basics on how to use grids. I've seen some beginners just ignoring the grids, and then when they you make like this super cool looking layout, and then when you go to WordPress, there's like no way to make the same thing without using like a lot of negative margin or like doing some crazy stuff. So it's always better to keep it within the grid, and I promise building this is going to be a lot easier than not using the grid at all. So let's move on now to our WordPress site. I'm gonna show you how to use the columns on actual WordPress with Oxygen Builder, but I'm not really going to build anything too complicated. I'm just gonna show you how to insert the different elements, and then from there you should be good to go and try to make any cool design that you can think of. Before we continue, I've been making these videos for a little bit now, and I've had people come to me or send me emails or contacted me through social media asking for help, asking for advice, and some people have some very specific problems with their websites, and I love helping people, and this is the whole reason I'm making YouTube videos. But sometimes you kind of need like a more one-on-one session with someone. So I decided I'm gonna start making tutor sessions, one-on-one, 1 hour long, and they're gonna be super affordable. Also, for anyone who cannot afford that, I want to give 1 session away for free. So if you go to my website, I'm gonna put the link in the description. You can sign up for the free, I guess it's gonna be like a little contest that I'm gonna make. So I'm gonna choose 1 person, and that person's gonna get a 1 hour long session free with me through Zoom. And then if you want to go ahead and just get a session with me, you can also sign up for that and schedule some time on my calendar. And hopefully I can help you guys and answer some of your questions. I 100% don't know everything, but I'll do my best to really kind of guide you through whatever problems you're having or anything like that. I'll leave the link in the description. If you're interested, go and click that and sign up for the contest, or just schedule some time with me. And we're back. So I'm here in my WordPress. And this is my Oxygen builder. Like I mentioned, I like Oxygen builder, and this is the builder that I use for all of my projects. And if you're not familiar with it, you can maybe go and watch my other video that I'm gonna put here or maybe here. And that one's just me making a super simple landing page with Oxygen. But what I'm gonna explain right now is also super basic. I'm just gonna talk about the different sections and how to accomplish the same type of rectangle grid layout that I made in Figma. I can go here, and if I click here on add, this is gonna show us all of the sections that Oxygen comes with. And then here on the right, if we click on structure, it's going to, this part is going to show us the different sections of our website. So as we start adding different elements, we're going to see them all in the structure, and it's super easy because you can move stuff around, and it's easier than having a bunch of layers. I can click here on section, and this is going to be the container I was talking about. So this section can be as wide as you want. You can play around here with the different settings, but I'm just gonna keep it simple for this, and I'm gonna go ahead and add some columns inside. So Oxygen already gives you some options here. These are probably the most common column layouts that you're probably gonna use. So I'm just gonna do a 50-50. Now it doesn't have to be an exact number like that. It can be anything you want. If you go here, you're gonna start seeing the structure of the different sections, and I can click here, and this column is going to be 50%, but it can be anything. It can be 20, it can be 30, it doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want, pretty much. And then the other one's going to automatically add up to 100%. So whatever you put here, the other one's gonna change automatically. And the same if I do that. So let me do just 30 and 70. Okay, so I was talking about nesting columns earlier, which is probably what you are going to want if you're trying to make a layout that's a little more complicated than just 2 columns. So you can easily go here and add a div inside of your left column, and then inside of that div you're able to add another column. So at first it's not going to put it inside the div, but you can drag and drop, and then you see that it's inside your nested div. Then here on the width property, I can specify that I want it to be 100%, but you know, it could be anything. So I'm just gonna leave it 100, and then inside I can again choose if I want 3 columns, or you know, it could be anything again. So let's go ahead and create one of our sections. I'm just gonna use rectangles. So I'm just gonna here change the background color of my sections, and just going to make it really easy to understand. So if we see that on our mobile or our tablet device, we can see the difference. So I'm gonna go, this is my column. I'm gonna use different colors for everything, and then just go to like the top level here and do the same. Alright, so I have my different little sections here, and I have my nested columns. And now if I wanted to do something like what I did on Figma, which is keeping my 3 columns in one row, this is going to be the default. So everything's gonna go 100%, and we're gonna have 3 lines of elements, and that's not really what we want. So in order to fix that, we need to do a couple of things here, and this is gonna be one of them. Stack columns vertically. If you go to flex and then you go here to flex wrap and choose no wrap, that's when you're going to get your 3 columns. And then if we go to mobile, this could be mobile side, and you're like, yeah, maybe this is a little too small for mobile, I want it to be 100%. We can easily go back and just kind of undo that. So we could go here and turn that on. This is This is cool because you don't have to worry about making sure that this is not going to affect the other size. That's something that I really like about Oxygen. Like any options that you have here on the left, they're only going to affect the size of the viewport where you're currently seeing. In this case, this is our less than 768, and then it's going to affect this one, which is the smallest one, but it's not really going to affect anything bigger. Now with this, you can do almost anything if you learn how to nest the columns like that. And it's pretty simple. There's really nothing complicated about it. Like I was saying at the beginning of the video, you want to be able to build anything that you can imagine. As long as there's some logic behind it, you should be able to do it, and you don't want to promise anything that turns out you can't do. That's really bad. It should be a good start for you to really understand how layouts work in web design, and hopefully you'll be building any kind of layout in no time. Alright, this is it for today's video. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know if there's anything that you want to learn that maybe I can explain. And don't forget that I'm also doing the one-on-one sessions. So if you have any particular questions that you kind of need someone right there with you to help you with, and that a YouTube video maybe doesn't have the answers for you, you can go to the link in the description and schedule some time with me. See you in the next one.